Who came with you when you came to Moweaqua to live here?
I was just 10 years old and we moved here from Pana. My dad started the shoe store next to the Kroger store, which is on the corner where the Legion building is now. It used to be one building. Kroger's had a grocery store there, and Duez shoe store started there in 1936.
So is that why you moved to Moweaqua to start businesses?
The
shoe business. Do you remember the prominent businesses when you first arrived here?
Well, starting on the corner, we had Kroger's, had a grocery store, and then we had Duez shoe store. This was 1936. And then Dallas Coburn had a restaurant. And next door, John Thomas had a grocery store. And then Earl Keenum's had a grocery store and butcher shop. And next door we had a variety store. And next door was a food room. And the next door was a hotel and had another restaurant in there. And the next building down is where Doc Forster had a dentist office. And then on the corner we had a mobile gas station there.
Wow, lots of businesses.
Yeah. That was that one block.
Wow.
That's that first block on the west side of Main Street. And you want to know the ones on the east side?
No, that's enough for me.
Well, I can give them to you all along the east side there too.
Go on ahead. Let's hear them.
There was just a house. Mrs. McHenry lived on the corner house, and then the next building there where the beauty shop is now, Jeff Jarvis had a barber shop. And then next, John Haslam had a general store. He had shoes and clothes, groceries, dry goods. And then the next building south, Noel Flanders, Fred Williams had the drugstore. And then next door was Byron Tozier had a barber shop. And then next door to that it was empty. And then next door to that was empty, but that building was used in 1932 as a mortuary for the coal miners that got killed in the disaster. And then the next building, they had a recreation building there for the kids to keep them off of the street in the early days, and then it became a barber shop. And then next door to that was the bank. And then on the corner there was a bank that had gone out of business during the Depression. That takes care of that side of the street. And above the building, with the building that's tore down where the empty lot is now, above that bank, there was a upstairs there, and it was used for the boys to play their basketball games before they had the school buildings built. That's
interesting.
One of the uses of it.
Did your family have like a favorite restaurant or shop that you love to go to, or you?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Did you have like a favorite restaurant that you loved to go to, or in Moweaqua?
We were so poor we ate at home.
You did. Did you get to know any of the mining families after the disaster?
Yes, I knew remaining families.
You did?
Went to school with a lot of them. There was a lot of children there.
Were you friends with a lot of the children?
There was 3 homes there, and they had 45 kids in the 3 homes. Pekoviches, Cherpaks, and Potsiks. That's a lot of children for 3 houses.
That is. Did you remember, we know that on Christmas Eve they had memorials for the miners. Did you go to any of those?
No.
No.
only 10 years old.
Right. Did you hear any interesting stories about the miners or what happened that day or anything? Do you remember?
I can think of two men that worked in the coal mine that didn't happen to go to work that day. William Harriet and Ben Pulaski. Both were employees of the mine, but neither one of them went to work that day. The only two I recall that didn't go to work that day.
Do you remember, did people still talk about the accident when you came to Moweaqua? Or did they just leave it alone?
More or less always been something, because it was such a tragedy that it was a worldwide news item when it happened on Christmas Eve in 1932.
Right. Did you ever visit the mining site when you came to Moweaqua?
There wasn't much left there when I came here in 1936, but they did have a slag pile. You know, the part of the coal that wasn't burnable, they piled it up and had a great big mound of slag there, and we used to go there and run up and down that, or ride our bicycles down.
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
Slide down there if it had snow on it in winter times.
So the mine was torn down when you came to
Pretty well torn down. We were all afraid to go there because places there you might fall in and go down 700 feet.
It's not good.
That wouldn't be much fun.
No, it wouldn't. We know that the mine reopened after that disaster. Was it, so it was closed when you came to Moweaqua?
It was closed, as far as I remember.
How do you feel like the mining accident affected Moweaqua? Either good or bad?
Well, I can't see how it done any good.
Right.
But all those children were left without a father. Left a lot of widows. There wasn't much aid for them like there is today, so they had a very hard time. I remember one girl in particular that had a two-wheel cart, and she would push that cart up and down the alleys where people, if they threw out food from their table, she would pick that up and bring that home and would feed their hogs or their chickens. Because at that time you could have hogs or chickens in town. And that was one way they had of having some food for their hogs.
Right. I'm done with my part.
You need a break?
No.
No.
Alright.
Okay, well, we're gonna switch. I'm gonna be cameraman.
Okay, guys.
Just press the record button right there. Okay. Is it still recording? Yep. Okay.
Where'd you lead off, dear?
I like skipped around a lot, like with 18.
Okay. We found that wait, just a second. Okay. We found in our research that there was a widow's fund after the accident. Was there still around whenever you came to help out the widows?
I don't remember. I was too young to.
Yeah.
I was only 10 or 11 years old.
Do you remember talking about the mining accident in school?
Not really, I don't.
What did you guys do for fun in Moweaqua?
Oh, so many things we used to do, and things were all inventive. We used to go to the junkyards, which we had 3 or 4 of them here, and we'd get us a little wheel and take a stick and then put a little crossbar on it and run along pushing that wheel. Then we would take a tin can and put it on a rock, and we'd stand back and take turns of throwing another rock at it to knock the the can off the rock, and there'd be somebody on the other side of that, and if you knocked the can off, you had to go put that can back on the rock before somebody could catch you, or you had to be it. That was, we called that ducky on the rock. And then down where the fertilizer plant is now, they had a stockyard down there, and they had gates that you could swing back and forth along the sides where they had, where the pins were. And if you were real agile, you could jump from one pin to the other side or swing on the gate. And we called that game Old Man Eitherfoot. You could, somebody was it, and then you would stand on someplace, and if you moved either foot, he would try to run and catch you and make you it. So you'd swing on the gate to get away from him, and really lots of fun. I spent a lot of time playing Old Man Eitherfoot.
A lot of creative games.
Yeah, and then down where the trailer court is now, there was a pond there, and in the winter time we would go there and we would get us a can and a stick and go down there and play hockey. Hockey kicking, shoving that can around on the ice down there. And then that was a brickyard at one time. And then down where the housing addition is now, there was a pond there too, and that was a brick factory. At one time we had 3 or 4 brick factories in Moweaqua, and we spent a lot of time on that pond in the winter time. We'd go down there and build a little fire out on the ice, and I'd take the kids down there and we'd go down there and slide on the ice and have a big time. Then we played chalk the rabbit. You'd get a piece of chalk and run sidewalks and make a mark which way you was going. Then they were supposed to try to catch you. If you got caught, then you were it. So all the games we played were just creative. There was no expense to them because nobody had any money.
Yeah. How was life during the Great Depression?
Seemed like everybody was happy. Nobody had anything, but we always were real happy. We were satisfied with what we had, and everybody was honest. You didn't have to lock your doors, and hardly anybody had an automobile. And one little funny thing is if some kid was lucky enough to have an apple and you saw him eating his apple, you'd holler cobs, so that meant that you got to eat the core. Because a lot of us never had an apple very often, and you were tickled to death to get a cob. But we were happy, and people are too busy today to really be happy like they could be or should be. They're more interested in making money or having more than the next person has. So.
Yeah. So do you feel that Moweaqua has changed for the better or the worse?
I think Moweaqua was for the better up until about the last 10 or 15 years. I think the event of the supermarkets has changed our business here so much. You know, we only have one filling station, we only have one grocery store, and we used to have lots and lots of grocery stores. We had 2 huckster wagons. You know, huckster wagons was, they had food on them, and they would go out to the country and trade food for the farmers, cream or eggs. We had 3 creameries in town. Farmers on Saturday they would milk cows and bring their cream to town and sell it to these creameries. Then they would have money to buy their groceries or come to the shoe store. back in the 30s, right after the coal mine museum, coal mine disaster, all of the farmers came to town, and they would look like the streets of Chicago. At night, people were walking up and down the streets. The girls would walk by, then they'd have boys that followed them, and then the pool room was full with the men and the farmers in there playing pool, and the women were busy shopping for groceries. And, the people drove their cars to town. They had a hard time finding parking, and a lot of the city people would come up on Saturday afternoon and park their cars, and then they'd walk uptown so they could be with all of the farm people that come to town at night. It was everybody really had a ball. Well, that has all changed. That's no longer happening, and never will happen again, most likely.
Yeah, too much hustle and bustle now.
Yeah.
So, do you hear any stories about the mining accident whenever you got here? Did you hear any, like, interesting stories or thing that stuck?
Not really. I'm really too young to pay much attention to it or care when you're 10, 11, 12 years old.
We're about done.
We are?
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Oh, I thought it might have been interesting to have told about the beginning of Moweaqua. I don't know whether you cared much about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 1800s, that all of the land out east of town was swamps. And I asked an old man one day, I said, what was the one thing that changed Moweaqua the most? And he studied a little while, and he said, drainage. I said, drainage? I said, what do you mean drainage? He said, well, all that land out east of town was nothing but swamps, and they drained that land and made farmland out of it. So, you take all of those 1,000 acres out east of town and added that, made them valuable, was quite a change for Moweaqua.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting of how the post offices has changed in Moweaqua too. The first post office was down in the south end of town at 101 Cherry Street, and then it moved up to where well, let's see what's in there now. Right next to the funeral home, that building there. The post office was in there in the early 30s at Coal Mine Museum, coal mine disaster time. And then it moved across the street to where Don Wright had his plumbing shop. And then about 1939, it moved next door to, well, it moved in where Duez had their shoe store. And the shoe store moved 2 doors down where a restaurant had been, and Trulock's had a grocery store at one time. And Joe Thomas had a grocery store there too. And in 1966, I bought where the shoe store was, where Joe Thomas's grocery store was, and then the picking parlor is in there now.
Oh, okay.
So one by one, the businesses left. At one time we had 7 or 8 filling stations.
Oh, really?
We had, down where the bowling alley is now, they had a tractor sales down there. M&M, Minneapolis Moline, had tractor sales down there. And then where the cross street from the savings and loan bank is now, there used to be a livery stable there, and they had another tractor sales there. Alice Chalmers had tractor sales there. And then down where the grocery store is now, on the south, just about where the grocery store is, there was another livery stable there. You know, livery stable is where they kept hay and stuff for the farmers' horses. And they've taken that livery stable down piece by piece and took it out to where Phil Bolden lives. I think that building is still there.
When you say tractor sales, like, was it certain brands of tractors?
Alice Chalmers was the one up town there.
Were there like Oliver tractors or?
No, they just Alice Chalmers. That was the brand name, and then Minneapolis Moline.
Okay.
Was down. And at 230 East Elm Street is where Howden Ayers lived. And behind his house, they had an ice house that they would go out to the flat. I don't know whether anybody ever told you that or not, but they had an ice house. And they would, in the wintertime, they would go out to the creek and they would ship ice out of the creek and bring it up and put it in that building and put sawdust all around it, because that was a good insulator. And then they would have ice for the summertime. It's kind of a neat way to do it.
Yeah.
And then
branch.
What, huh?
Was that flat branch?
Flat branch, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When it was, how big was Flat Branch?
Well, it was big enough that they had a navigating route going to the Mississippi River with it.
What about the bank?
Here, the bank.
Yeah.
Well, when they built that bank, it made the front of it has got pillars, and each one of those pillars weighs 550 pounds, and they were hauled in here by rail cars, and then men with their teams and horses hauled those from the railroad over there to where they made the pillars there for the bank. And the bank that was on the corner, it was already closed. I think it must have closed during the Depression because it was empty when I moved to Moweaqua. Any other thing you can think of you'd like to know about?
Not unless you have anything. I think we got all our questions answered.
Yeah. You did good.
Was there any other factors you would like to know about?
We don't really know much about it, so whatever
Would you like to
whatever
know,
we might know.
would you like to know about wages and prices of food? And,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
in 1938, we had lots of people around here worked for $1 a day. And you could go to a grocery store and you could buy a loaf of bread, a pound of hamburger, and a quart of milk for a quarter. But think how expensive that worked if you had to work 1/4 of a day to buy no more food than that. And gasoline was 8 gallons for $1. But imagine how expensive that was if you had to work one whole day to buy 8 gallons of gas. But it didn't matter because people were poor. Poor and didn't have a car to put it in.
How much were shoes?
Shoes were about $2 a pair. And my dad rented the north half of the what the Legion building is now. He rented that for $12 a month. Was rent. And 1944, I lived in the second house over here, and my dad paid $12 a month rent when we rented that house. That was the value of money back in them days. Nobody had any money, and you could buy eggs for 2 or 3 cents a dozen. Milk was 7 or 8 cents a quart. Then we had a bakery in Moweaqua, and on Sunday mornings I would work in that bakery. They would bake that bread, and they'd run it through a slicer, and then they had a machine there that had wax paper, and it would roll it up in wax paper. And then somebody had to be sitting there at the end of that table there where these loads of bread come out wrapped with wax paper, and I had to take my hands and hold those together till it cooled so it would stick together. And I got to eat all of the ends off the bread I wanted, and got paid 25 cents if I go there on Sunday and work to do that.
Did you guys sell a lot of shoes back then?
My dad started a shoe store. He had 4 dozen socks, and I think he had 18 pairs of shoes. But he started that mostly as a shoe repair shop, because back in those days people didn't have money to buy new shoes. We were so poor that I even went barefoot in the summertime. People usually would buy their kids a new pair of shoes when school started, and they'd tell them, now you be careful with them shoes because you don't get any more until school starts again. And by the time school got out, you was putting cardboard in the soles of them to keep the rocks from coming through. It was enjoyable living. Everybody's in the same condition. Nobody had anything. A brand new car then cost, you could buy a brand new Ford or Chevrolet for about $650. But that was almost 2 years total salary to buy an automobile. Think how expensive that was.
Yeah.
You know, today people make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year and only pay $20,000, $25,000 for a car, and they think that's expensive. Well, what if you had to work 2 whole years to buy that car? How high it would be. So that's how lucky people are today. That's the reason I always say I'm the luckiest guy in town. To be able to live like we do.
Yeah.
Anything else we ought to tell them, huh?
You just know so much history that. What about the hospital? Do you know any history on the hospital? You knew there was a hospital here in town. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys knew that.
Yeah.
2 of my children were born in the hospital.
Wasn't there like 9 beds in the hospital? Do you know?
I don't remember how many there were. See, the east building there was the hospital, and the other side was for convalescent and birthing room. And I was more acquainted with the birthing room.
You know anything about the park?
When I must have been 13 or 14 and lived across the second house over there, and the park just grew up in weeds. There was nothing there. It was very big high weeds growing up in there. And then about in the 40s, in the 1940s, they started taking care of it a little bit. Where the dentist office is, We used to go there and play ball before they ever built that building there. And then across the street north was the telephone office. And then round behind, you know where the opening is, where the pillar thing is there, that was the library in Moweaqua. And then next door was the firehouse. They had a couple of real old Model T fire trucks in there back in the 30s. And then behind, I don't know what, then on the corner there, they had the firehouse, and then they had another corner, the building on the corner there was a brick building there, and that's where the Moweaqua News was printed. They had a printing shop in there. Do you remember that? No? I remember when they did tear that down. Then right north of where they had the library, they had a Ford garage was there, and then it closed up. And Richard Lockwood, you know Richard Lockwood?
No.
No, you don't know him. He has the country music down to the.
Oh.
Yeah, they play music down there once a month down there. Well, him and his wife made a skating rink there, and they had a skating rink there in that garage building there at one time.
Did you ever go skating?
No. Yeah. Didn't have money to go. You don't realize how life is when you don't have any money. Where the another thing I just thought of, where the Legion building is now, and then where the building is, you walk up steps, get inside. I think they got a massage parlor or something in there now. Well, next door, Bill Dove had a little restaurant in there, and you could go in there and you could get a bottle of pop for a nickel, and you could get a hot dog for a nickel. And if you wanted a hamburger, it cost you a dime. So if you happen to be lucky enough to have 15 cents, you could go get you a hamburger and a bottle of pop. And then next door to that was, I don't know whether you know Bunny Adamson or not. He was a little here for a long time. Well, his grandpa had a hardware store, and then next door was the bakery, and then next door to that was another hardware furniture store. Our Gregory had a furniture store there, and then next door to that was the theater. And then next door to that was a building that people lived in, and then they remodeled it and had a frozen food store there for a while. Yeah. And back behind that they had a building that they used for the railroad. The railroad had a building there, and we used to, in the later 30s, we used to get shoes shipped out of St. Louis, and they had a cart there, and I'd go over there and get 4 or 5 cases of shoes shipped out of St. Louis by rail to this building, and then I'd push them over to the shoe store in a cart, and it cost $1.08 to have all them shoes shipped up here by rail. It's not, it don't sound like very much money, does it?
I think you gave us a lot.
Did I do good?
Yes.
I can. All right, so.
Okay. As an adult and over the years in the shoe store about the mine disaster.
Oh, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot?
No.
Okay. Well, I didn't know, you know, the way the guys always came in and visited with you and chit-chatted.
Yeah.
If they told you stories
I think after 40 years, I think it pretty well got to where it wasn't talked about very much.
Yeah, okay.
But it was a very, very tragic thing.
Well, yeah, when you said, that always impressed me when you told me that in 3 homes,
45 kids.
45 children. Now that's just 3 sets of parents. That's 15 children in each house.
It's amazing.
Can you imagine today? If your parents had 15 children.
People would probably think you're nutty.
Yeah, but that was the way they lived. That's the way it
You
was.
got to realize too that by the time
There were 4 of you.
By the time you have that many kids, they're kind of like pigeons. You know, the pigeons, they have young ones all year long except March, and the older ones in the nest keeps the younger ones warm. You know, by the time you have 15 kids, the older ones are able to take care of the younger ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys had quite a few interviews?
Well, this is the only one we have.
We'd go to, they had a lumber yard here, and we'd go to that lumber yard and play hide and go seek in there. And then right north was Kaufman's Mill. You've heard of Kaufman's Mill?
Yeah.
They used to grind wheat there. Well, anyway, they had a grocery store there, and they had lights out in front of it. And a bunch of us boys would get together at nighttime, and we'd all hold hands, and one guy'd stick his finger in the socket. And the guy on the end, he got all of the jolt of it. Electricity goes through the end. The guy on the end, he'd really get zapped.
Oh.
Oh, then in front of Kaufman's Mill, there was a ice house where they brought ice down from Decatur, and they would go around house to house and deliver out ice to eat people before they had a lot of refrigerators. You probably don't remember when people had ice boxes.
No.
Then right in front of it, a little bit farther north, was a welding shop where Bill Wigman made horseshoes. People would go there and he'd get their horses shod. And then he made stuff for the farmers. He sharpened their plows for them and welded back where they got worn off. And you don't remember that either, do you? And then right west of where this building was an ice cream shop. They made ice cream cones there. You get a great big ice cream like that for a dime. Moweaqua had lots. Well, Moweaqua was self-sufficient. They had everything in town they needed. Had 2 lawyers, had doctors, they had dentists, everything. They even had taverns till 1939. Had 4 taverns in Moweaqua. Down where that housing is there now, you know where the housing is uptown there?
Yeah.
There used to be a dry cleaning place there, and then there was, next to the dry cleaning place was a tavern run by Billy Brown, and then next door to that was an empty building. Then on the corner there was a harness shop. Nick Nalbeck had a harness shop there. I used to like to go in there and talk to him. He was quite he made saddles and things like that. He got kind of done away with that. And after that, Elmo Parker had a place for the farmers to bring their chickens in for resale. And he bought eggs, And then after that, Nevada started TV shocking there.
Okay.
And then after that, the Coal Mine Museum got that building. My wife and I, we babysitted the Coal Mine Museum some afternoons for a couple of years. Quite interesting. I spent a lot of time going through all of the pictures and the books there. Have you done that?
Yep, we went there as a class field trip a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yep.
Some of those guys would work all week and still owe the company money. Well, not everybody gets to.
That's right. The older I get, the more I find that out.
Got to look at the bright side of everything. There's two sides to everything. Regardless of how thin that pancake is, it's got two sides.
That's right. Yes. This is very interesting to us because we're from Assumption.
Oh, okay.
So we don't know much about anything about Moweaqua.
Yeah, well, see, I lived in Macon for 30-some years, so I don't know that much about Moweaqua. So,
Yep, my dad's from Assumption, my mom's from Blue Mound, so. Don't really know much.
what are you finding out? You'll find out more.
At a grocery store where the picking parlor is now.
Yeah. See, I mean, with Joe, he could tell you the prices of stuff and what they sold and how it was brought in. And I mean, you know, these guys are just...
They done a lot of business on credit because nobody had money back in them days. And they were people who wouldn't let anybody go hungry. And they got rid of lots of groceries they never did get paid for. They had stacks of bills that people never did pay. But everybody was in the same boat.
He's a good man. Would you young ladies like to have a camera?